As a lot of my colleagues may know, addressing global warming has been an important issue for me since my early days in the Senate. I think the facts are indisputable today. Our planet is growing warmer. We as human beings are a major contributor to that. If we continue down the path that we've started on, the consequences will be for our planet and for our country and our people catastrophic. It is up to us to ensure that America leads the world down a different path. We must and we should. The EPA estimates that unless global warming is controlled, sea level rise will be by as much as 2 feet over the next 50 years. And I've heard even greater amounts by over the next 100 years. For island nations and coastlines, that could mean entire cities and beaches are wiped out. It's up to us in this body to ensure that those beaches, those cities, those coastlines are preserved. I got a chart here I just want to share with my friends. For those of us who've not been to Delaware, this is Delaware. About 100 miles from end to end, and about from east to west, maybe 50 miles here. This is the outline of our coast. This is Lewis. This is Cape Henlopen. This is Rehoboth Beach. This is Dewey Beach, Bethany Beach, Fenwick Island, nation's summer capital. This is where the beach is today. 50 years from now, we don't do anything about global warming. Sea level rise has been at least 2 feet. This will be the beach in Delaware. This is Dover, Delaware, our state capital. This past Sunday, we hosted 150,000 people from all over the country, NASCAR racing. 50 years from now, if we're not careful, this will be not Dover, this will be Dover Beach. And we won't be having NASCAR races at Dover Beach. We may have sailing regattas, we may have motorboat races, but we're not going to be having stock car races unless we do something about it. We also know that the United States is one of the world's 2 largest emitters of greenhouse gases, along with the Chinese. In fact, they may have overtaken us by now. We account in this country for almost 20% of the world's man-made greenhouse gas emissions and for almost 1/4 of the world's economic output. I believe our nation has a responsibility to reduce our emissions of CO2. In short, we have a responsibility to lead. In the mid-1990s, as part of a climate change initiative, DuPont began aggressively maximizing energy efficiency. That initiative has allowed DuPont to hold its energy use flat while increasing production. As a result, DuPont reduced its greenhouse gas emissions by more than 70%. By doing so, the company actually saved $3 billion. Billion with a B, $3 billion. But a patchwork of state initiatives combined with good corporate stewardship, however welcome, is not enough. We must have a comprehensive national approach, and not only to give a signal to corporate America that this is a priority, but to the world, the United States is prepared at long last to be a leader on this front as well. I have enough faith in American technology, American ingenuity, and know-how to believe that we can provide that leadership without endangering our economic growth. In fact, if we're smart about it, we'll end up strengthening our nation's economy, we'll end up creating hundreds of thousands of new green jobs, and we will end up creating products and technologies that we can sell and export around the world. A lot of times people say to me, well, what can I do as an individual to help on global warming? And as it turns out, everybody can recycle. Everybody can do that. And here's a couple of reasons why. In 2006, the United States recycled, threw away in a can in trash, some 82 million tons of materials, a recycling rate of about 1/3. We recycle about 1/3 of that stuff. We offset, let me just back up, let me just say that again. In 2006, the United States recycled about 80 million tons of materials. That's about 1/3 of all that we would otherwise throw away, offsetting the release of some 50 million tons of carbon. That's the equivalent in emissions that we saved by recycling of some 39 million cars each year because we recycle. However, we only recycle about 1/3 of what we could. However, each year, Americans discard enough aluminum to rebuild our entire domestic airline fleet every 3 months. Put simply, increasing recycling cuts greenhouse gas emissions. Let me start off by addressing 4P. 4P stands for 4 pollutants. I appreciate that this bill acknowledges that dangerous air pollutants, including sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and mercury, are emitted by the power sector in this country. However, acknowledging a problem is not the same as solving that problem. I believe that in addition to reducing greenhouse gases, we must eventually pass a comprehensive bill that also reduces these other 3 harmful pollutants: SOx, NOx, and mercury, sulfur dioxide, nitrous oxide, and mercury. Some of my colleagues know because I've driven you crazy over the last 5 or 6 years on this, visiting many of your offices. But 12 of my colleagues and I have introduced the Clean Air Planning Act of 2007. We call it CAPA, C-A-P-A. We believe that the Clean Air Planning Act provides an aggressive yet achievable schedule for power plants to reduce emissions and alleviate some of our worst air-related health and environmental problems such as ozone, acid rain, mercury contamination, and of course, global warming. This multi-pollutant approach fits perfectly within the framework of this comprehensive global warming bill. I believe that we would be foolish to address only one pollutant, however important it is, carbon dioxide, coming out of our nation's smokestacks, while others, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen oxide, and mercury, threaten our health and our environment too. My state of Delaware, along with the states around us, Maryland, Virginia, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey, we're at the end of America's tailpipe, and we continue to breathe dirty air. The bottom line is, as we develop an economy-wide solution to global warming, we can't lose sight of the simultaneous need to enact stricter caps on mercury, on nitrogen oxide, and sulfur dioxide from power plants. The transportation sector is responsible for about 30% of our nation's carbon dioxide emissions, almost a third. That is why Congress passed legislation that I co-authored with a number of my colleagues last year, Senator Feinstein and others, to increase auto fuel economy from an average 25 miles per gallon to 35 miles per gallon by 2020. The bill before us today also includes a low-carbon fuel standard and funding for developing alternative fuels. And as the only member of the Senate who serves on all three transportation-related committees, I look forward to attempting to bring those three committees together to create a comprehensive approach to reducing carbon emissions from the transportation sector before we address climate change next year.